started?
Yeah.
Oh, this is nice. We have water, guys. Do you have water? Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I don't know if this is working. Works for you too? Good. Welcome back, or welcome for the first time to the home of sustainable agriculture, the America. This is Science Day, so we're really excited to have a panel sponsored by Bio and the Biotechnology Industry Organization. Or did you change the name? It's the same. Good. I hope it's the same. The Biotechnology Industry Organization has organized this panel. They do great work around the world, but particularly in the United States. Many years ago, I was one of the members of that organization, and the work they do to advocate policy for life sciences is very important in the world of agriculture as well as in the world of health. Life sciences are really going to change the way that we attack this double challenge of feeding 10 billion people by 2050 and also taking care of the existential crisis that we have in terms of our planet. How do we grow sustainably enough to feed an increasing population? Life sciences is part of the toolbox in order to make that happen, and so we're delighted that we have this panel here today to discuss these subjects. So I'll turn it over to Rose to kick us off from the Farm Journal Foundation. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you so much. And thanks. Is this on?
It's on.
Oh, great.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah, kind of. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. I'd like to thank ICA for hosting us and elevating agriculture at the climate discussions here at COP. It's really important. As we know, agriculture is part of the solution, so it's really important that we're here talking about these issues: life sciences, agriculture, biotechnology solutions. So thank you so much for being here, and thanks to our panelists for being here. I'm really excited by this discussion. I'm with Farm Journal Foundation. We're a nonprofit advocacy organization that's nonpartisan, based in Washington, D.C. We advocate for U.S. funding for global development, agricultural development, I should say, and innovation to help smallholders be more productive and contribute to global food security, improve their livelihoods, and improve nutrition outcomes. Today we're talking about leveraging biotech value chains to advance food security and sustainability. I'll just give an overview of the panel, and then I'll turn to them to introduce themselves and say a little bit about their organizations and the role of biotech in your area of focus. So this panel will discuss how biotechnology innovations can leverage synergies across value chains to advance global food security, whether it be adopting biotech feedstocks, reducing inputs in agricultural production processes, or cultivating disease-resistant crops. Sustainable food systems will bolster demand for and reliance on biotechnology solutions. However, continued progress in this area is being restricted by a lack of clear public policy that would incentivize the research, development, and deployment of these types of next-gen technologies. The panel will discuss the landscape for biobased innovations that advance sustainable growing practices, open new markets for bio-based feedstocks, and ensure a role for biotechnology across a wide range of end products. So with that, I'll turn to Eduardo, Tamara, and Jamaica to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their organizations and the role of biotechnology. Thank you. I think that one. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamara Murward-Hagoyena, and I am the Vice President of Sustainability at the International Fresh Produce Association. Thank you, Rose, for the introduction. A huge fan of Farm Journal. Also, I want to thank Bio for this incredible invitation to be here today. So what is the International Fresh Produce Association? We represent the global entire supply chain of the fresh produce and floral industries. We operate in 40 countries around the world. And so that is what we do. In the area of sustainability, today we're here in climate change, and our industry is a solution to climate, because if you decrease your consumption of fruits and vegetables, you already are improving your carbon footprint and your environmental footprint. And we also are invested in sustainable farming to take it to the next level. Sorry?
Hold the microphone up with
A little closer. Like that? Okay, sorry. And so, as I said, so we are a solution to climate change by increasing your consumption of fruits and vegetables. You decrease your carbon footprint, your environmental footprint, and we are heavily invested in sustainable agriculture to take that solution to the next level. What do flowers do in this scenario? Flowers make us happy. That's very simple, but also extremely powerful. How does biotechnology play a role in all of this? In advancing sustainable agriculture, we have different areas that we're working on. And one big area that I'm going to be focusing on today is regenerative agriculture, which is huge for our industry. And that tsunami that is coming to us, regenerative agriculture, we as an association are very invested in that type of agriculture, and biobased products are a big solution there, because that is a regenerative agriculture is a journey, and in that journey there's a progression of elimination of synthetic inputs into the agricultural systems, and in order to do that you need bio products. So that's in summary who we are and what we're working on.
Thank you. Eduardo, would you give the mic to Eduardo? Thanks.
Good morning everybody. Thank you for the opportunity of discussing this very important topic today. I'm the president and CEO of CropLife Brazil. CropLife Brazil is part of a worldwide network. We have representatives from CropLife International there, but we also have regional CropLives. Basically, the whole idea is to support innovation in agriculture. In the Brazilian case, we were a merger of 5 previous associations that represented 4 different sectors, 4 different technologies, being one pesticide, bioinputs, biotechnology, and germplasm. So these are 4 technologies that complement themselves in the field. Basically, the idea is to sometimes search for synergies. Sometimes you're going to have substitution of one technology for another one. For instance, you use a bioinput to substitute or to complement part of the pesticides. You can use biotechnology and reduce the use of pesticides. So this combination that in CropLife Brazil we try to enhance. So I believe that we don't have any room anymore to one solution for complex situations. We have to look at the multiple solutions that we will take into consideration specific situations, specific conditions, specific region of the globe, and in CropLife Brazil we try to do that.
Thank you so much.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamaica Gale. I am the Senior Director of Sustainability and Environmental Affairs with the Corn Refiners Association. So just a little bit about CRA. So CRA represents 100% of the corn wet milling industry in the United States, which has a $71 billion economic impact annually. So the industry uses corn kernels to produce hundreds of different products that have thousands of different uses. A century ago, we were very focused on things like food and feed, so think corn oil, cornstarch, that type of thing. While that's still a priority, today the industry is also tapping into innovation and chemistry to help build the ag bioeconomy. So corn-based renewable chemicals and materials are used in some of the most innovative industrial and consumer products that are available today. A few of my favorites, just because you might not expect it, include corn-based materials can be used in 3D printing. They can be used in dynamite, antibiotics, and makeup, so very, very diverse uses. And while I'm going to be wearing my kind of corn hat for most of this conversation, I also want to mention another association. So all CRA staff also wear a hat at another association called the Plant-Based Products Council. And that association is a feedstock agnostic trade association that represents member companies from across the plant-based product value chain. So from grower organizations to bio-based polymer manufacturers to kind of consumer brands that are selling products made with bio-based products or materials. So in my role, I am interested in how technology and other ag innovations can help on the corn growing side of things. So we do a lot of work with the National Corn Growers Association and help support a lot of the work that they're doing there. But I think in general, today, thanks to biotechnology and innovation in this space, we're producing a lot more with a lot less. And I think it's that type of technological progress that has really allowed U.S. agriculture to make such progress in the last several decades. So I think in terms of CRA's interest in this space, we really are focused on the corn growing side of things and how to make that more sustainable.
Thank you so much. Actually, I was reading yesterday, we've increased our productivity in the U.S. by 270% in the last 70 years thanks to innovation like this.
Very impressive.
So it's kind of exciting. I'll start with questions. And I'll start with you, Tamara, if that's okay. And then we'll just go down the line. And this relates to regulatory barriers. As an industry, how are you handling regulatory and policy barriers that could prevent needed biotechnology innovations from being brought to market?
That's interesting. It's an interesting question because a lot of the regulatory barriers that we encounter in our industry are due to the fact that for some reason regulators don't understand agriculture, don't understand why we need agriculture, why we need to eat, why we need agricultural products. It really stems from that. And it perplexes us how many barriers sometimes we see for things that improve our industry, improve products that are good for people. And so biotechnology could be one of them. Anything that has to do with innovation, we see a lot of barriers. One area that will make people wild is that, for example, in our industry, and it's somewhat related to bio-based products, is packaging. And our industry has invested a lot in bio-based packaging, compostable packaging, etc. And then now we're starting to have regulations that prohibit compostable packaging because they say, well, it contaminates the recycling streams. But wait a minute, why don't you create a stream for products that are good for the environment? So that's one of them. And then in other areas of biotechnology, we see a lot of misunderstanding from the side of regulators, and I think that misunderstanding is what holds them to improve regulations, mostly so we can have more investment in innovation, because that's our goal. We need more investment in innovation to be more sustainable.
Eduardo?
Thank you, Rose. Rose, if you allow me, before I answer this question, I'd like to briefly bring some numbers of biotech used in Brazil.
Sure.
Yeah, we are celebrating 25 years of the first biotech product in Brazil, which was RR soybean. So to celebrate that, we carried out a study to identify the economic and environmental benefits of just for the use of biotech, and the numbers were impressive. Before going to the numbers, I'd just like to mention that if you look at the large-scale crops in Brazil, which basically soybean, corn, and cotton, the use of biotech is at least 97%. 97%. Cotton is 99%. So, we then carried out this study. This study is available in our website. But basically, is to bring some numbers. In terms of economic benefits, we are talking about $40 billion to farmers over these 25 years. $30 billion related to the increase of production, $10 billion because of the reduction of cost production. But when you look at the environmental impacts, you have also very, very significant numbers. The reduction of CO2 emissions in the atmosphere in these 25 years, just due to the use of biotech, was 70 million tons of CO2. We calculated how much land we would need to produce the same thing without biotech. This would mean that we would need more 21 million hectares. Not mentioning the reduction that we had related to the reduction of use of diesel, water, and the optimization of the use of pesticides. So very impressive numbers that I'd like to share with you and the audience.
That's amazing. And how are you using these numbers to influence the regulatory and policy environment? Because sometimes I feel like despite these great impacts that we have in the U.S. as well, it's not changing some of the regulatory environments in countries that would really benefit from these tools.
No, this is a very important question because we need development, but we need deployment.
Right.
And the regulatory system is fundamental to provide the access of these products to farmers. I would say that in this area in Brazil, we have managed to establish a very efficient regulatory system, which is based on biosafety commission that's comprised by 54 scientists, 27 are the main ones, and we have managed to approve new technologies, biotech technologies, in 1.5 years, which very
That's amazing.
reasonable.
So your scientists are advocating for these policy changes in Brazil.
That's right.
Wow.
Because we managed to get science-based people analyzing that. But I would also like to conclude saying about the importance of the improvement of other countries' regulatory system. Because what is happening nowadays, Brazil has established this efficient system to approve biotech products. But when you look at around and see the countries to which we export the final products, sometimes takes a lot of time. In the case of China, for instance, to where 30% of our agricultural exports go, it's taken 7 to 8 years longer after we approve the technology in Brazil, which means that companies cannot make it available to farmers. So you have a new technology, this technology is approved, so you are allowed to produce in Brazil, but the risk of part of it to go to China is enormous because 30% of these products go to China. So you cannot make it available. You have to keep it in the shelf.
Sure. Jamaica, would you like to add to this?
Absolutely. So I think definitely want to second the comments from Tamara related to just bio-based products and some education that's needed around those. I think both on the consumer side of things and the regulator side of things, while it's not a new industry, I think it's an industry that's growing very quickly and is getting a lot of attention. And with that attention, I think there's a lot of just like information sharing that needs to happen to guarantee that the regulatory environment is kind of consistent and science-based and that type of thing. I think consistency is a really big key. I think there's a lot going on around the world that's headed in very different directions, and even in the States, there's a lot of it's just a lot of different things that are happening, and that makes it really difficult for the manufacturers of these products to have consistency and kind of predictability in the marketplace. So I think that's definitely a barrier and something that we try to kind of advocate for some just consistency around.
For sure, and sometimes I think, the science-based approach is great, but sometimes some of the scientists who are not involved in agriculture, sometimes the climate advocates are opposed, even though there's scientific, great reasons, great results, great impact, and scientific rigor around this. Sometimes I know that they can be a block too. So I think better educating them and bringing them together and having us all here today talking about the impact of agriculture and how it can be a solution, I think would help. A second question, and moving on, I'll just ask Eduardo, and feel free others to please chime in on the role of the public-private partnerships, private sector partnerships, in enabling effective adoption of biotech solutions to support resilient food systems and climate resilience. Can you talk about that?
Sure.
Role?
Well, I think that, first of all, what we have just discussed previously in the first question, it's very important, a good communication between who develops the technology and who will create the regulatory system. So in this case, private sector and government communication, clear communication is very, very important. But I would also like to mention a particular experience in Brazil where we have Embrapa, which is a public research center, with which we have a great partnership. So CropLife Brazil has lots of projects working together. Our member companies also have lots of joint efforts in terms of developing new products, of testing new products. So I think that this partnership is extremely important.
Thank you. Jamaica, do you have any comments on this, or?
I can add something briefly. I think from where we sit in the value chain, a big opportunity for public-private partnerships is just kind of helping to share the risk when it comes to investments in developing some of these innovations. I think it's expensive and it takes a while, and I think there are good opportunities just for the government and industry to work together to kind of help bridge the gap that exists right now for a lot of that, I think, just capacity.
That's a great question. While you have the mic, I'll just ask, how can we best balance the development and deployment of innovative biotechnology solutions across the short, medium, and long term? And this question is for all of us.
Yeah. So I appreciate the kind of phased approach to that question. For short term, I think there's a lot of solutions that biotech can bring right now that exist, and I think really it is just looking at how can we take what is already exists and just kind of spread that and I think drive adoption and that type of thing. I think in your introduction you mentioned a couple of different just biotech opportunities around regenerative agriculture, like biotech seeds, and I think there are like bio coatings and that type of thing that can help to boost yields and help with like drought resistance and that type of thing. And I think looking towards the long term, I think we're learning a lot more about how climate change is impacting agriculture in a lot of different spaces, and I think there will be a lot of opportunity for very tailored, I think, biotech to help to tackle some of the issues that I think we'll continue to learn about. I think maybe also on the long-term side of things, I think there's definitely a need for data collection and data sharing when it comes to like how biotech can help just like on the sustainability side of things when
Sure.
it comes to like crop yields and soil health and that type of thing, and just like how to tell that story well.
Absolutely. That would definitely support the evidence base and the communications around this. I'll ask Tamara, would you like to speak next just to mix it up a little? Either one.
So for us in our industry, climate smart agriculture is taking center stage, and that's where the biotechnology comes in. And specifically of all biotechnology, there's a huge need for bio-based products, bio-based inputs for production. And right now, some of the barriers that we're finding are more on the economical side of things. So something that Jamaica mentioned, so price, right? So price of these new inputs, these new technologies for growers. It's something that we need to overcome because the need and the hunger for bio-based products is immense right now, and more developed, more advanced products in the long term as well. But price right now, it's really one area where we need to be better at, so there could be greater adoption, at least in our industry.
For sure. Of course.
Just to add, I think that the points that Jamaica brought was very important and very related to the reason why we are here. I think that biotech can play a very, and is already playing a very important role related to adaptation on climate change. So I think companies are already worried about opportunities related to higher temperatures, because this will definitely make important change in the level of pests, the level of disease. So I think that it can play a very important role in the adaptation area of the climate discussion.
For sure. And how has it worked in Brazil with deployment? Like, how did you get around that with farmers? Because I know Tamara just mentioned the cost implications. There's the regulatory challenges. How did you deal with it in Brazil to support deployment, I guess?
Well, in Brazil there has been a very high level of adoption in these areas. So
because the farmers have seen how effective biotechnology solutions can be, so they wanted that technology.
That's right. As I said, if you look at the large-scale crops, almost 100% of them, almost from 97 to 99% already use it. So they understand the economic benefit of that.
Sure. No, for sure.
Yeah, something that we've been struggling is to create the culture of refugee. This has been a very challenging work, but something that we have to strengthen. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Tamara, next question, we'll start with you and go down. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges to integrating innovative technology and efforts to address food sustainability and climate resilience?
Well, two. One is as I mentioned before, is the cost of adopting new technologies. And then the second is innovation of those technologies. How advanced are those technologies to really be beneficial for our crops? And I think it's important for the audience to understand that whereas Eduardo and Jamaica are speaking of crops that have, yes, as Eduardo was saying, close to 100% adoption of biotechnology. In fresh produce, there are not that many crops that are that use biotechnology. It's there, it's growing, and it has a future, but it's not quite there yet. I think the biggest benefit, as I mentioned, for us is all about inputs in the field, and the need is immense. But are those parameters, one, cost, and how efficacious those technologies are to for the needs that the farmers have to address, and again, as Eduardo meant, adaptation to climate, greater needs for pest resistance, etc.
For sure. Jamaica, I'll go to you next, and then we'll go to Eduardo. But same question. From your perspective, what are the biggest challenges to integrative technology into efforts to address food sustainability and climate resilience?
Yeah, so I can speak to maybe the corn grower side of things. And very specific to the U.S. So there's a framework designed in the U.S. to kind of streamline the way that USDA, FDA, and EPA all like work together to regulate biotech products. And from the corn growers, it's been shared with us that like in recent years, there's been a lot of kind of overlapping responsibilities in that space and some kind of interagency delays that have made just like the process in general really unpredictable. And that ends up really slowing down some commercialization of those innovations. And I think that's directly related to how quickly we can deploy like sustainability solutions, like we've talked about. So that is, I think, a pretty big barrier. And really, it's something that can take years and cost millions. So that's, I think, a pretty big deal.
It absolutely is. And I have to say, we bring farmers, stakeholders from across the U.S. to advocate for more funding, public ag research funding for innovation, as well as agricultural development. And that is something that we hear constantly from our farmers, that it just takes a very long time to get the regulatory things in place so that products can get to market, products that they would benefit from. So super important points.
Yeah, and I think it gets even more complicated when you're talking about like exporting those innovations. I think then you're mixing in a bunch of different
For sure.
like, international.
But farmers, because of their low margins, they want innovation like as soon as possible,
Exactly.
especially with all the sustainability goals that consumers and companies are asking for. They really need these tools.
Absolutely.
Now I'll pass it to Eduardo.
Well, I think that the major challenge is exactly to make sure that we have innovation, because as I said, with climate change impacts, we will have an increase of, especially when we're talking about a tropical country, as in Brazil, we will definitely have an increase of pests and diseases. So we have, and also the higher temperatures. So I think that this is a very important challenge, and that's what producers start to demand.
Right.
So, but one important topic is what I mentioned before, related to make sure that in the importing countries, we also have a more efficient regulatory system, so that
Absolutely.
it can be available to producers, to farmers.
That makes a lot of sense. And you've answered this question. Okay, so next question. What message do you think is most important to communicate the role of biotechnology and that they can play in meeting emission reduction goals? Sorry, I should repeat that. What message do you think is most important to communicate in terms of the role of biotechnology can play in meeting emissions reduction goals? Would you like to start?
Sure. So in our industry, nitrous oxide is one of the greenhouse gases that our industry is most involved in. Probably one of the most unknown. Everyone talks about carbon, everyone talks about methane, but nitrous oxide, not so much. So we don't have the knowledge, we don't have the science quite yet there, but we really know that there is a relationship between synthetic fertilizer use and nitrous oxide emissions. And then so biotechnology could play a huge role in biofertilizers and bioinputs to improve soil health. So that is the ability for the soil to not only sequester but store carbon, and also to reduce the emissions of nitrous oxide.
Thank you. Eduardo?
Well, I think that there's still a high level of lack of technology, of knowledge of the society related to this technology. I believe that most people do not know that we've been producing for so many years biotech in the field, and they've been, it's part of their lives already. So there is all this prejudice, and our role, I think, is first to make sure that we have sound studies that can demonstrate especially environmental benefits, and they are very clear. including the reduction of CO2 emission. But there is reduction of diesel, water, optimization of pesticides. So I think the first point is to quantify these benefits. And second challenge, but this is the most difficult part, is to correctly communicate these results to the society. I think that this is, I mean, we are talking about a technology that for sure contributes to all this discussion related to how to reduce climate change. But sometimes it's very difficult for the population to understand that. So we have to have sound studies, quantify these studies, and try to on a very scientific basis, and try to communicate it more with society from big cities.
That makes sense. Jamaica?
Thank you. So I think first, important to emphasize just the fact that sustainability and innovation and biotechnology go hand in hand in agriculture. We are hearing all of these goals across the board in agriculture, and it really is like biotechnology is the way that we are going to accomplish those goals. I think another important thing to communicate is just how far we've already come with the support of biotech. I think even looking at like corn farming, there in the last 40 years, it is like very, very impressive to see the progress that has been made across the board in terms of energy use, greenhouse gas emissions, like soil erosion, and it's all because of like the innovation that's happening in agriculture. And I also think another important thing to kind of help communicate is just that it is already being done. Like I think it's 90% of U.S. Corn acres are planted with like biotech seeds. So it really is like widely adopted in some areas.
For sure. Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
Rose, can I come back in a previous question that you have asked related to partnerships?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just saw Lloyd arriving here, and I was thinking the role and the partnership that has already taken place, for instance, between agencies such as IICA and private sector. So there are many initiatives that are going on in the Americas, and this could be something, including training and qualifications. So many, and also to try to bring the message, I think, to come back to the previous question related to communication. So I'd like to add that point to the partnerships. I guess that they are can be very productive.
Great. No, for sure. Absolutely. I have one more question I'm going to turn to you guys. Well, you know what? I'm going to take questions now and then end on this last question. But is there anyone who has questions in the audience that we could ask our great panelists? Not right now? So the important question I have is how can we make sure, can you hear me? Okay, great. It's kind of blinked out for a sec. How can we make sure that ag innovation is at the table in climate discussions going forward? Because we all know that, as you mentioned, like this technology's been here for 90 years in the U.S. It's been in Brazil for decades. We need more solutions for fruit and vegetables for sure. We need more funding for these solutions because innovation takes funding. We need better regulatory processes. But we also need to make sure that we're at the climate discussions because ultimately biotech's a solution for climate mitigation and adaptation. So how should we, what should we be doing going forward to articulate those messages?
I'm amazed that no one had questions for us in the audience. Was it all that clear? Are you all shy? Are we so amazing?
I think they're all supporters.
So, so we need a lot of innovation in agriculture, and we just need better understanding what agriculture is in the general public. There's so much disconnect between the general public, the regulators, and the market, and agriculture that is unbelievable. You know, sometimes you come to these conferences, you come to these places, and people forget, you know, what agriculture brings to all of us. So we just need more funding and more and open doors for innovation so we can be more sustainable, feed people, etc. And just that. But how we overcome that. We as an association started this year a really strong campaign to really make people understand what are fruits and vegetables to all of you, and that, you know, you need to eat them. And that seems so simple, but we have seen such incredible regulations that are not effective to our industry in the last few years that we need to remind people why you need agriculture, why you need food.
Thank you, Eduardo.
I was thinking, Rose, as we speak now, there are 20 chiefs of state in Brazil right now discussing many of these topics that we are talking about, trying to identify major challenges and how to address them. I'm talking about the G20,
Yep.
which should be concluded maybe.
I was going to pivot to that, so that's great. Start, you can talk about it now. Great.
Yeah, and we have participated very, very closely to all these discussions. As you may know, in parallel of G20, there is a B20, which is basically people from private sector trying to bring recommendations to the governments, and CropLife Brazil, CropLife International were also part of these B20 discussions. And the major three pillars that we have identified, and we're talking about very deep discussions among 20 countries, were the following. First, productivity. Second, financing. And third, trade. Trade reduce the barriers. So what we are talking today is for sure the most important priorities to all these 20 countries, which main result is to reduce hunger in the world. So we have the productivity and the role that biotech and other technologies are playing to that, and also trade. So we have to enhance, to decrease the barriers, trade barriers in the world, in order to accomplish this result of reducing hunger in the world, but also addressing another major challenge that we have in this century, which is climate change.
For sure. Jamaica.
Happy to answer the first question about just being in the global climate discussions. So I think to Tamara's point, there is a lot of disconnect between us, between consumers, between regulators, and I also think there's a lot of work to be done to get in front of our critics. I feel like there's always such great messages in conversations like this, but I'm not confident that it's always getting to the right audience in a lot of these areas. And I think that's something that those discussions obviously need to happen. And I think showing up is a big part of that. And I think that's certainly something that
Absolutely.
like everyone is so excited about for next year, when we're expecting there to be a big focus on agriculture and food and the bioeconomy and that type of thing. So I think that's something that is definitely going to happen, especially next year in Brazil.
No, thank you. That's exactly right. I mean, we need to show up. Agriculture need to show up, and I just have to thank Bio for organizing this panel, because it's super important that we create platforms for us to talk about
Absolutely.
the important technologies that we absolutely need to transform food systems and ensure food security. Yes. Oh no, I've got one more question. Because we have 15 more minutes. Is that right? Oh, of course. Oh my gosh. Of course, Lloyd. Sorry, you missed it when I asked earlier about.
No, I was here. I just didn't think about it. And so thank you for giving me a chance.
Of course.
As many of you know, and maybe some of you don't, we've worked a lot at ICA to help, essentially promote regulatory schemes around biotechnology, around now gene editing. And we've seen some real advancements in some of the countries that were heretofore opposed to gene editing and biotechnology that are now progressing toward accepting that. There's a couple countries that had already taken steps forward, and now they're taking steps backward. There's one big country that I don't know if it was mentioned because I had to come late from another meeting that is having some troubles accepting the technology, and there's politics around that, and that won't be so easy to solve. But gene editing is being widely accepted where transgenic biotechnology was not. What do you all see for the potential in both? We know that there's great potential in that, but for the regulatory approval and acceptance of some of these countries that heretofore have been against transgenics and still are, but maybe we could get an acceptance of gene editing in because it doesn't have the transgenic component. Do you see that as finally being the straw that broke the camel's back in terms of acceptance of technology and these innovations?
It's a great question. Jamaica, do you want to start with that on that side, and we'll work our way down?
I need some time to think about it.
Sure.
Is anyone else ready?
No, absolutely. Tamara? Eduardo could start, and then...
Yeah. No, it's a very good question, Lloyd. And I think for sure there's a great opportunity for gene editing. As you know, many countries still don't know how to deal with it, how they will deal with it. But it's important from my perspective to mention that I think that both technologies will coexist. They will go together because gene editing it has a huge potential, but not for every solution. So I think that the discussion is just starting. But for sure something that will pick up very, very quickly.
That is a fantastic question. And so in the produce industry, biotechnology has barely been adopted. But gene editing is the next frontier for us, for sure. That is the area where many, many companies are working very heavily in advancing the science of gene editing for fruits, vegetables, flowers. Its close relationship to traditional breeding, it just makes that leap very easy. And I do believe that the regulations will, and this is my belief, will change soon. Our industry is definitely heavily invested there, whereas in the broader biotechnology, really late adoption. So, yeah, big future there.
Do you have anything to add, or you're good? Okay. No, I was going to say that I have seen acceptance where, when it relates to people's staples, like I think banana blight in Uganda, there wasn't a traditional way to deal with that, so they needed to use some genomics, and the government was open to it because obviously they were going to lose their entire banana crops, and that meant people's livelihoods, and it's a staple in Uganda, so it's something that people ate every day. So they desperately needed solutions for that. So I think once you can show the benefits to crops that people eat, and maybe specialty crops is the place to start. And also when farmers see the kinds of productivity gains that you can get with that technology, that also improves the perspective. But when it's crops that people are growing themselves, and I know in developing countries sometimes that's hard because we use it for corn and cotton, and smallholder farmers are not growing those crops necessarily, or if they are, they're using local varieties, and they can't see the benefits. But once farmers can see those benefits, they're going to want it, and then when they want it, the governments are going to change. So and when it relates to their food security, hopefully they'll, with regard to bananas, I know that was a good example and a very unique example. but there was definite adoption. Are there any other questions from anyone? Okay, thank you so much, Lloyd. That was a great question. There's maybe one more thing I'll ask is, in terms of the important policies that you would like to see change, this is the third to last question that I had on the sheet, but what policies do you see as most important for leveraging biotech innovations and getting them into the hands of farmers and other producers? Is there one particular policy that you think needs to change going towards COP, looking at the G20? Like, what would you ask them if you could speak to the 20 leaders today in terms of advancing biotech and really getting it into farmers' hands? What would you say about that?
Yeah, I've already touched on, I think, the biggest one for, at least from our perspective, and it really is just the efficiency of getting those new innovations approved. I think, especially when we're talking about like climate solutions that are needed like today and yesterday, I think it really is just like trying to make that efficient, I think, both in the U.S. and internationally.
I think that's what our farmers would say too. Just help us with the regulatory barriers.
Yes.
And get it approved faster.
Definitely, I think that this is the most important. You have to have efficient regulatory system, science-based system, but also very important to have more synchronous approvals throughout the globe, so that this is a very important way to get, especially on exporter countries, to farmers have access.
It's like trade zones.
Trade zones, yes.
Yeah, economic trade zones.
So for us, our need for biotechnology comes in two big blocks. One, biomaterials, and the other is bioinputs. And on biomaterials, as I mentioned before, is mostly for biopackaging, so compostable packaging. We need regulators to be there with us, because right now it's so chaotic and so difficult. And for biomaterials, mostly is to eliminate whichever barriers, but also just to improve innovation so those materials are most effective for growers.
Thank you so much. I think we're coming up on time and we've gotten through most of the questions. So with that, I just want to thank Bio for organizing this. This has been an incredibly important discussion, especially as we, like at Farm Journal, we focus on ensuring that these technologies get into the hands of farmers all around the world, not just in developing countries, but also in the US, because our farmers need to be successful as well. It's a food security issue, it's a national security issue, so really all farmers need better tools to meet the climate challenges going forward. So I'm hoping that we can keep this conversation going, especially in the run-up to the next COP. If anyone has more questions, please let Tamara, Eduardo, and Jamaica know, myself, feel free to reach out, and we'll try to follow up in the next few months as we head towards Brazil. But thank you so much for coming, and thank you for organizing this. Thanks.
Welcome. I'm pleased to join this conversation about the circular bioeconomy for a climate secure planet. My name is David Jones. I'm Dean of the College of Engineering at Utah State University, and I'm also the chair of the Circular Bioeconomy Systems Institute. There's three things I want to accomplish as you begin your conversation about a climate secure planet. The first is to tell you a little bit about CBSI and invite you to join our efforts. The second is to remind us of the CBS principles. And I want to talk about next steps as you engage in your conversation. CBSI is part of and was started from the American Society of Agricultural and Biological.
Good afternoon from a warm South Africa, and hope progress has been made at the COP29. Thanks to Ika and Hugo Chavaria for the invitation to participate in what I think is the most crucial issue in addressing climate change.
Welcome. I'm pleased to join this conversation about the circular bioeconomy for a climate secure planet.